Well, hello, everybody. It's good to see everybody here tonight. Not everybody, though. We do have two excused absences for tonight's meeting, but we will proceed with our normal order anyway. And we have a pretty full agenda, so I'm just going to give a sneak peek of how this meeting is going to work, as I usually do. Just to show everybody here, there's a typical format for the meeting that has been the way we've been doing meetings in the last, I'd say 9 months now. So you can participate in tonight's meeting, which is being held remotely via Zoom, by raising your hand, using the chat function, or using *9 if you're calling in. You can use that to speak if you're asked for public comment. The format of tonight's meeting is typical in terms of having a variety of different agenda items. So I'll walk through some of those items here. We'll do the introduction in minutes. There is one public hearing item on tonight's agenda, which is consideration of a zoning ordinance text amendment. 3 items that we'd consider old business, including one item relating to that zoning ordinance text amendment to have a recommendation on it to the board. And then 2 actions related to a development project called Clover Senior Housing. And then we do have 2 new business items, which are both discussion items, not requiring a formal action tonight. One is a preliminary review of a variance request that's going to go to the BZA eventually. And the other is a preliminary review of an irrigation pond permit for 2 5-acre irrigation ponds. And some of the folks who were noticed about tonight's meeting were referred to a Development and Planning Commission items page. So just quickly, I will point out what we're talking about here. If you go to our website, there is a Development and Planning Commission items tab on the website. If you navigate down on the homepage under the Economic Development part, you can click Development and Planning Commission items. And that's going to bring you a web page that combines our map of all the development projects with a listing on the left side that shows you some of the current items on the agenda for the upcoming meeting. So this is interactive. You can use this to click and access the packets, the plans, at least for tonight's meeting, that is available to people who are interested in what's on the agenda. So just so everybody knows that that's out there. But at this point, I would like to move away from just talking about the format of the meeting and get into the meeting itself. So with that said, I'll kick this over to our chair, Carol Thompson, to start things off.
Thanks, Director Power. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for Van Buren Township for Wednesday, March 24th of 2021. We'll start with a roll call, please.
Jeff Jar.
Here.
Brian Cullen.
Here.
Brian Kelly.
Here.
Medina Atchison is excused. Sherry Budd.
Here.
Joan Franzoy is also excused. Carol Thompson.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Harmon. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Thanks.
Support.
Support, Commissioner Jar. Any changes or additions? Then we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Brian Cullen.
Yes.
Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Sherry Budd.
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our regular meeting of March 10th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Through the chair, Sherry Budd would approve the minutes.
Thanks, Commissioner Budd. Support.
Commissioner Jar would support.
Mr. Jar, thank you. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Then a roll call vote, please.
Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Sherry Budd.
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes, thank you. First up on tonight's agenda is a public hearing. The item 1 is the lot coverage zoning ordinance text amendment. These are proposed amendments that would revise the definitions of lot coverage under section 2.102 definitions and regulations related to lot coverage under section 4.103 footnotes to schedule of regulations of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance in order to relax lot coverage requirements related to unenclosed roof structures. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I move to open the public hearing.
Thanks, Commissioner Jar. Support,
Support.
Commissioner Kelly, and we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. So the public hearing is now open. The applicant is actually ourselves, so we are amending our own zoning ordinance. So we'll hear a short report on staff. This agenda item has been before us before for a lot of discussion, but we welcome public comments. If you'd like to speak to this agenda item, if you would be recognized through the coordinator for the Zoom meeting. And then when you're called on, tell us your name and address. And if you would keep your comments specific to this agenda item, there'll be a chance to speak on other agenda items later on in the meeting. But first, we'll start with Director Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say we will, as staff, comment on these zoning ordinance amendments in the first item under old business. But for right now, I'll just refer over to our attendees side to see if there's anybody here who seems to be interested in making a public comment. So if anybody is here to make a public comment on the lot coverage zoning ordinance text amendment, please go ahead and either chat to us or raise your hand virtually or dial *9. Most of the, or all of the attendees I see over there appear to be here in general or related to one of the other cases on the agenda, and I do not see any hands raised. So I do not see any public comments, so we can go ahead and probably close that out.
Thank you. So there being no comments, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
Thanks, Commissioner Kelly. Support,
Madam Chair, I support.
thanks, Commissioner Jar, and a roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. So we move right into old business. Item 1 is the same agenda item, the lot coverage zoning ordinance text amendment. This would be following no comments from the public at this meeting and previous discussion. We would be looking to make a recommendation to Township Board on the proposed amendments that would revise the definitions of lot coverage under section 2.102 definitions and regulations related to lot coverage under section 4.103 footnotes to schedule of regulations of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance in order to relax lot coverage requirements related to unenclosed roof structures. And now we'll go back to Director Power. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the introduction of this case. I will just quickly say that we have had two, and this would be the third discussion on this topic, which is intended to provide a little bit of reasonable relief to those who have industrially zoned properties with permitted outdoor storage to enable the coverage of those outdoor storage areas up to 20,000 square feet or up to 10% beyond the lot coverage limits within the zoning ordinance. So we've developed that ordinance over the course of these meetings. There have been some really good questions asked and some changes that have been made to refine this to account for a lot of different scenarios. I guess at this point, I'd like to defer over to Vidya Krishnan to go over those changes. And after she does that, I can just walk through the steps from here. It's pretty simple. If there is a recommendation to accept those changes and accept the ordinance as written, or maybe have some minor additional changes, this can go on to the Township Board to be adopted in two readings with the Board of Trustees. But before we get to the point, why don't we hear from Vidya Krishnan about the most recent round of changes, and we can go from there.
That's good. Thank you, Director Power, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this lot coverage amendment has been before the Planning Commission twice before, and there was extensive discussion on it. And the intent behind this ordinance amendment is to make our lot coverage requirements for the industrial districts, specifically the M1, M2, and MP districts, more reasonable in order to allow for coverage of previously approved outdoor storage areas. So these will be unenclosed. It's merely like an awning or other structure that will provide protection to outdoor storage area. The intent is very clear that it would not increase impervious surface area or add to any other adverse impacts from the site. So these are existing paved areas which have been approved for outdoor storage. And the amendment is quantifying the extent to which we would allow such coverage over these areas. Previous time this ordinance appeared before you, we did have a whole definition, additional sentence which spoke about porticos and solar arrays. Upon further discussion after the meeting, Director Power and I determined that we were unnecessarily confusing the issue. By adding more limitations, we might be boxing ourselves into a corner or creating such a narrow interpretation which would have unintended consequences. It would be better to leave the language as it is. So we deleted the reference specifically to the porticos and the solar array panels. We also added clarification that the 10% coverage or up to 20,000 square feet is beyond the 35% coverage that is already allowed for these industrial districts. So we believe with the cleanup, this ordinance is very clean, it's very clear, and it is concise, and it clearly specifies that this is for industrial districts only. So we don't get a similar request from either a commercially zoned parcel or a non-residential use in a residential district. So if the Planning Commission is happy with the proposal presented, the motion before you tonight would be to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. Questions or comments from the commission? Anyone? Do you feel like our issues from the previous meeting are addressed?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kelly?
I like the updates. I think simplifying it made it a lot easier to read and a lot clearer.
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Commissioner Jar?
was a lot of work, but staff, I think it looks very good now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? One more time, I'll ask if there's any public comment on this agenda item.
I
Doesn't
do not see
seem like
any
it.
hands raised.
Okay, thanks, Director Power. In that case, then you want to do the next steps, Director Power?
Sure. So at this point, with the Planning Commission behind the amendments as written, you will have a motion to consider recommending these amendments to the Township Board. The ultimate decision is going to be the Township Boards to make, and they have 2 subsequent meetings where they'll do readings on this amendment before it's official and able to be absorbed into the code, being the zoning ordinance. So go ahead and make your vote on a recommendation, and then the board will review it with their first reading on April 6th.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kelly?
I'd move to recommend to the Township Board of Trustees to adopt the proposed text amendment regarding lot coverage.
Thank you. Support?
Madam Chair, I support.
Thank you, Commissioner Jar. And this will be a roll call vote, please.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Brian Kelly,
Yes,
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. So this goes forward to the Township Board, and Director Power, if you could also let the BZA know, since this was a referral back from them on one of the requests that they had, so they can be kept apprised of how the development has proceeded.
Very good point. The BZA is going to meet on April 13th, so we'll be sure to have it on the agenda for that meeting.
Great, thank you. We'll move to item 2 under old business. This is Clover Communities Special Land Use Review. The applicant, Clover Communities of Van Buren LLC, is requesting special land use approval for the construction of a proposed senior housing facility with 128 independent senior housing units. The property at 8470 Belleville Road, parcel number 0369900027702, is located on the west side of Belleville Road between Tyler Road and Robson Road, and it is zone C2, which is extensive highway business. The parcel is plus or minus 17.7 acres in area with a plus or minus of 16.16 acre development site and a plus or minus 1.57 acre out parcel. We'll start first with a presentation from Township Staff, and then we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll state some comments about the special land use, which is the first of two requests that are being considered. And I'll use that opportunity to steal some time just to go back over the steps that brought us here tonight. And then we can go into the more extensive special land use report from our principal planner, Vidya Krishnan. So senior housing was accepted into the township zoning ordinance as a special land use in a variety of different zoning districts in the township with ordinance amendments that were passed in 2019. So as a special land use, this independent senior housing development with 128 units has some specific special land use standards that apply to it under our zoning ordinance, sort of above and beyond what some of the zoning ordinance standards are for permitted use by right in the C2 zoning district. Additionally, there are special land use standards that apply to all special land uses under state law. So that's the first part of what we're going to go over tonight is those special land use criteria. And then we'll have another round of reporting on the details of the site plan, specifically in the preliminary site plan review portion. Just before we move into that special land use review, I will just remind the Planning Commission that this project has had a series of review steps leading up to this point. On September 9th, after a deferred public hearing, there was a public hearing on this case, which is required for all special land use requests. So there was a public hearing that was moved from August 26th to September 9th, and that was open and closed, and that's been held. At that same meeting, there was a initial consideration of the preliminary site plan and special land use permit, and that was the decision on that was postponed. There were a couple of items that were addressed once that was postponed, including the minimum dwelling unit sizes for the dwelling units in the this senior housing project, and an additional change was made to relocate the driveway in a place that staff and the applicant agreed was more conducive to a safe separation from the end of Robson Road, which is across Belleville Road and slightly offset from where the original driveway was proposed. So between the dwelling unit sizes and the driveway relocation, those were some significant efforts that were made and some good changes that were made to clear those things up. So the project has had a delay since the public hearing. As such, we did send just courtesy reminders and notices to the neighboring property owners again. I certainly encourage anybody who wants to state public comment, we can have some time for public comment tonight because it's been a while since we've seen the project, but there is no formal public hearing again tonight. We're just getting right into the special land use and preliminary site plan review. I have a cover letter with some recommendations just related to that driveway item because I think that was an important item that staff reviewed with the applicant. And looking forward to the future, we have a public interest in making sure that that driveway and the layout of this site plugs into a potential future road connection of Robson Road across to the west of Belleville Road, if that ends up happening. So I just have a couple of comments in my cover letter about that, making sure that there's potential room for that road right of way to get placed in the future, as well as for the driveway that's currently proposed on the Clover site to be restricted if need be to accommodate the main access route being on Robson Road. But otherwise, the comments that were addressed in September, some of the important ones have been addressed, and there are some other ones that we'll go over now. So I think I've given enough of an overview on some of those significant changes. I will turn the commentary over to Vidya Krishnan to go over the details of the special land use request at this point.
Thank you, Director Powell. Madam Chair and members of the board, since it's been 6 months since the public hearing for Clover Communities, I'll just go over for those residents who are watching from home or the members of the audience, a refresher on what this project is about. It is a senior housing independent senior housing development. The proposal is for a 3-story, 45,800 square foot building with 128 independent living units. The site has a total area of approximately 17.72 acres and is located on the west side of Belleville Road between Robson and Tyler Roads. Now, the site plan typically reviews all the site design elements. A special land use is different. The goals of what a special land use attempts to accomplish are different than mere site design requirements. They have more overarching goals towards the benefit to the whole community. Our ordinance has specific standards based upon which every special land use is evaluated. I shall go over those in brief. The first one is will promote use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner for those who will use this land and those landowners who are adjacent to it and for the township as a whole. As Director Power mentioned, the senior housing ordinance was designed by the township in response to significant interest in the community to have facilities for people to age in place. That said, it took a while for the Planning Commission to work and adopt a really good senior housing ordinance, work with the Township Board of Trustees and get it into place. The proposal at this time is in keeping with what the intent was of adopting the senior housing ordinance. The site is located along a major thoroughfare, which is what Belleville Road is, and the use will likely promote the use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner. It's the first of its kind independent senior housing development in Van Buren Township, and it will create a niche space for those who are looking for a use of this sort. Any impacts resulting from either the development itself will be addressed through setbacks, landscaping, and other site design elements, which we'll discuss in our site plan review later. Is it necessary for public convenience at this location? The site is zoned C2, which is Highway Business District, has direct access to Belleville Road, and it is convenient to get in and out of. Is it compatible with the adjacent uses of land? It is adjacent to commercial use to the north and an industrial use to the south. The uses on the east side of Belleville next to the site are almost exclusively residential. However, the applicant is proposing to preserve a significant amount of existing wooded areas along the site's Belleville Road frontage. So we believe when the outlot, a small area designated in front, is also developed with landscaping and the existing vegetation, the residential areas should be amply screened from the development on the site. Is the project going to be so designed, located, and operated to protect public health, safety, and welfare? We believe the way the site is being designed, it will meet the standards set forth by the ordinance. The proposed senior housing can be adequately served by public services and facilities without diminishing or extending the township's facilities. The applicant is working with the township's engineer in order to meet all their utility requirements. Will not cause injury to other property in which the neighborhood is located. We do not believe this proposal will result in any injury to other parcels. This parcel is master planned for mixed-use development, which does anticipate a mix of highly intense residential uses and some amount of commercial uses. So the proposed use of the parcel is not only in keeping with the current zoning, but also the future land use plan map. The proposed senior housing facility is also within the provisions of uses that require special land use approval, and it is a valid exercise of the township's police power. In addition to these general standards, which are applicable to all special land uses, we have specific standards pertaining to senior housing itself, and those are listed in section 5.143. The first is that the minimum housing site area, for 128 units required is a total site area of 704,000 square feet. With the creation of the outlot, the applicant will have just enough land area available in order to meet the ordinance standard for the minimum lot size for the number of units they're proposing. The minimum usable floor area for assisted living units must comply with the state of Michigan licensing requirements. The standard has been met. The single resident room for an independent unit is required by our ordinance to be 650 square feet. The revised plan notes that 1-bedroom, 1-bath units will be 682 square feet, and 2-bedroom units will vary from 776 to 810 square feet. Our ordinance has a minimum unit size for 2-bedroom units as 850 square feet. The applicant appeared before the Board of Zoning Appeals last month and made an argument that was successfully accepted by the Board of Zoning Appeals to include common facility areas within the building, those areas that actually have amenities towards a small percentage of the living space for each individual unit. Based upon this directive by the Board of Zoning Appeals, the site currently does comply with this requirement. The next standard is with regard to frontage on a major thoroughfare. We believe the standard has been met. Belleville Road has a planned right-of-way width of 120 feet. The maximum permitted height for senior housing development cannot exceed 40 feet. The proposed 3-story structure is at 33 feet within the ordinance limits. The minimum required setbacks are 50 feet for each of the yards. The proposed senior housing facility meets all of these required setbacks. As Director Power mentioned, our master land use plan envisions that Robson Road someday would be a through road connecting further to the west, which means Robson Road will essentially run along the northern property line of the Clover development. We made sure that in the future, if Robson Road is built, this building will still comply with the 50-foot setback requirement from Robson Road. So the building will be compliant with the future setback requirement if and when that happens. The next criteria is requirement for open space areas and amenities to be provided. And the applicant has shown a site plan with floor plan, active and passive recreational amenities within the building too. The building by itself includes a large community room with coffee bar, game room on each floor, an activity center, and outdoor common patio, in addition to balconies for each of the individual units. The next criteria, senior housing buildings must present a residential architectural image in terms of building facade composition and the use of exterior building materials. Our ordinance has got specific standards. This is an issue for which we had to work with the applicant over a significant period of time to reach a level at which we were comfortable with the architecture they are proposing as meeting the intent set forth by the ordinance. We continue to have some minor additions that we are requiring of their building architecture, which I will review under the site plan review comments separately. We continue to hold fast that those recommendations that we are making will enhance the building further. This building has come a long way from what it was when it was originally proposed. And we believe with a little bit of more minor adjustments to the architecture, it can definitely be a good asset to Van Buren Township. The accessory structures are limited on this site to those that are incidental for the residents and the employees. The standard has been met. The applicant did go before the Board of Zoning Appeals to seek a variance to provide garages for these independent living units. And the size of the garages, based upon the number of units they have, was double what we would typically allow for a commercially zoned district. The Planning Commission offered their feedback before the applicant appeared for a variance, and they were in support of the applicant's proposal. The senior housing development as proposed does comply with the parking requirement as established in our ordinance. It does meet the landscaping and the screening requirements that are set forth. And finally, the site plan does comply with the sign ordinance regulations. The applicant has worked with the township over the past several months, probably drawing on a year, if not more at this time, to address several of the outstanding concerns. We believe at this time, the proposal that is presented meets all of the general standards of special land use approval. And with a few conditions, we are ready to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the special land use to the Township Board of Trustees. The conditions being approval of the utility plan and stormwater detention plan by the Township Engineer in Wayne County, revisions to the architectural elevations as noted in our site plan review and support of those elevations by the Planning Commission, and finally, that all of the conditions of site plan approval are met. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. Questions or comments from the commission first on the special land use? Anyone? All right, anyone in the audience, the applicant, or any members of the public who wish to speak on this agenda item?
I do not see hands raised out in the public, just for reference. I do see Ms. Arnott's hand raised on the screen there, and I know there's an interest in having a presentation, so if the applicant would like to, when the chair prompts for applicant commentary, if you'd like to show that now, you can, or you can wait till the site plan portion.
Sure, whatever the applicant is comfortable with.
I think we could wait to the site plan portion if everyone's comfortable, and just let you know that we're here to answer any questions that you have about the special use.
Great, thanks, Ms. Arnott.
Thank you.
Okay, one more time, planning commissioners, any questions or comments before we consider action? All right, is there a motion on the special land use?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kelly,
I'd move to grant the applicant Clover Communities of Van Buren LLC special land use approval for the construction of a proposed senior housing facility located at 8470 Belleville Road, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the McKenna report dated March 17th, 2021.
thank you. And is there support?
Madam Chair, I support.
Thanks, Commissioner Jar. And a roll call vote, please.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. So the special land use is approved, and we'll go right into item 3, which is a continued discussion of Clover Communities, but this time the preliminary site plan. The preliminary site plan is for the construction of the proposed senior housing facility with 128 independent senior housing units at 8470 Belleville Road, located on the west side of Belleville Road between Tyler Road and Robson Road, and Zone C2 Extensive Highway Business, with approximately 17.7 acres in area, 16.6 approximately acres of the development site, and approximately 1.57 acres for the out parcel. So Director Power, I'm going to go back to you, and then we'll see what the applicant has to tell us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's most natural at this point to allow our Principal Planner Vidya Krishnan to continue with her commentary, but I will make it I'll spice things up a little bit by showing the actual plan on the screen, which I did not do for the special land use. So we can refer to actual plan items on the screen, and then when it's time for the applicant to present, they can share their screen. So with that, I'll just defer my comments at this point to the reviewing staff, starting with Vidya Krishnan.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair, Director Power. Some of the details I already went through in the special land use application. So for a brief summary, site is zoned C2, Highway Business District. It also is located within our Belleville Road Overlay District, which has got specific design standards associated with it. The site has a total area of 17.72 acres. The applicant is splitting off 1.57 acre outlook for a future commercial development upfront, which leaves 16.16 acres, which is the exact amount of land they need to accommodate their 128 units. With regard to setbacks, as I mentioned, the proposed building complies with all of the setbacks and with the building height requirement for the district. Now, since you last saw it, the biggest difference in this project is the access from Belleville Road. Director Power, if you can point out, originally when the plan appeared before you and even till last month, the access drive was shown on the northeast corner of the parcel, which would place it in very close proximity to Robson Road intersection. At this point of time, Robson Road and Belleville Road, it is a T-junction. But in the future, there is a plan in the master plan that Robson Road should connect and become a through road. If and when this happens, the challenge will be that the applicant's driveway, if placed as they had originally proposed, would create major points of conflict. You'd have seniors turning in and out of the site, now trying to decide, it's basically playing chicken. Who gets to go first? Because you have an intersection right there. It seemed reasonable that when the project is coming just as a master plan is adopted, for us to look at the long-term vision and make decisions that would not be a problem in the future. So the applicant was amenable and understood the concerns that were being expressed and have shifted their access drive from where the red arrow is all the way down to where you currently see it on the site plan. The circulation pattern works much better because it provides for a distance and a separation from the Robson Road intersection, should there be a light installed at that intersection at a future date. If you also notice, the applicant has added a cross access on the north side of the internal access drive, so that if Robson Road is built in the future, there is a possibility of connecting this development for a secondary access onto Robson Road, which will be excellent in case of any emergencies or during peak rush hour traffic. At such time, we can restrict traffic onto Belleville Road, and independent seniors living over here can exit onto Robson Road and make their way to the light and move. This is a more improved access management design, and the applicant was amenable to making these changes because they know if this development has to stay here for the next 50 years, they would like it to be something that is convenient and safe for their residents too. So that is the biggest change that we have seen. Even when the access drive was previously shown at the northeast corner of the site, the applicant had submitted a traffic study done by a professional engineering company, which specializes in traffic studies. And based upon the trips generated from this site, which is the standard that is used in order to determine whether any improvements are required in the abutting roadway, it was determined by their traffic engineer in the recommendations that at this time, no additional improvements are required on Belleville Road. However, the final authority with say on it is Wayne County, because Belleville Road is under their jurisdiction, and should they choose to require any improvements, then the applicant will have to put those improvements in. With regard to sidewalks, the applicant does show a site plan with a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk along the entire site's frontage, which we believe is an excellent addition to the site plan, which previously showed a small sidewalk only along a limited portion of its frontage. This plan also shows a sidewalk connection from Belleville Road all the way to the interior of the site and provides sidewalk connections all around the building. So for seniors who would like to go for a walk or something in the evening, there is an excellent pedestrian circulation plan provided within the site up to Belleville Road. With regard to parking space dimensions, all of the spaces do meet ordinance requirements and are double striped as required. Based on the ordinance standards, the site requires a total parking of 160 spaces for units and the employees. The applicant has noted that there will be 2 employees in the largest working shift. So totally 162 parking spaces would be required and has been provided on the site. We were a little critical that such a big building with 128 units would require only 2 employees, but per the applicant, there is only 1 on-site property manager, and an additional space has been provided in order to accommodate a maintenance employee as and when needed. Since the applicant has got similar facilities in other places, we believe their employee count is based on real hard data and not just hypothetical guessing. With regard to barrier-free spaces, the plan indicates 8 barrier-free spaces, which are adequate. The spaces are ADA compliant. 1 10-foot by 50-foot loading space is shown. The space is shown on the east side of the building's main entrance, which, while not ideal, we typically prefer loading space in the rear of the building. However, in this case, the main entrance is where the elevators and all the conveniences will be located. So providing the loading space in an area that is easiest to reach and exit out of is what we believe the most functional location for that space would be. With regard to landscaping, our ordinance has significant landscaping requirements along the frontage for the parking lot, the interior of the lot, loading area landscaping, and greenbelt buffer. The proposed landscape plan submitted meets all of these requirements, with the exception of the landscaping along the frontage of the outlot. Currently, the site is significantly wooded. We would not want the applicant to cut down existing trees just to put in frontage landscaping. At such time, when the outlot is developed, if the trees are removed, the developer of the outlot will be required to put in landscaping along the frontage. At the present time, we believe maintaining the existing vegetation is a good idea. As you can see from the plan on your screen, all those faint marks are all existing tree cover, which the applicant proposes to retain as is. The ordinance also has requirements for extensive highway business C2 additional landscaping. Above all this, the site does comply with that too. Any landscaping shown around the detention pond ultimately is under Wayne County jurisdiction because they determine what can be planted along which slope. So the applicant is required to submit an updated landscape plan to us when Wayne County approves their detention plan. A tree removal permit is required for this site. The applicant has proposed 264 trees for removal, and they're replacing them at a 1:1.5 ratio. 176 trees are required, therefore, as replacement. Of these 176, 108 of those trees will be planted on site. As you can see in the rear, and wherever the applicant could place those trees, they have been added in addition to the landscaping requirements. The remaining 68 trees will be paid into the township's tree fund. As I mentioned, stormwater detention is under jurisdiction of Wayne County. With regard to lighting, for some reason, I think the applicant overlooked turning in a lighting plan with this submission, even though a lighting plan was consistently submitted with all other plan submittals previously. So based on the information that they previously submitted, our comments remain the same. There is just some clarification needed about the placement of the light poles and some of the details for the fixtures. The applicant has shown wall-mounted light fixtures on, like ornamental decorative wall-mounted light fixtures on the rear of their garage or accessory buildings rather than the front. It really makes no logical sense to have lots of light fixtures on the back of the building. I can understand providing one for security and safety reasons, but the ornamental fixtures belong on the front side of the building that is visible from the internal access drive, not on the rear. So we have made some recommendations regarding lighting, which are not difficult to meet. The biggest issue with this project, which has been under discussion, is architecture. The applicant originally proposed a building that was constructed almost entirely of hardy plank siding, which did not meet the senior housing standards or the BROD standards. The applicant sought a variance from the architectural standards and was denied by the Board of Zoning Appeals in August of 2020. Subsequently, they did make revisions to the building facade. The main building at this time, you can see the building facade is predominantly reddish brown brick with hardy plank siding shown in the other beige color areas. Batten wood and vinyl is used as an accent and as a secondary material. The balconies have been added for each of these units in order to provide a break in the building wall facade length itself. The buildings in the BROD are required to be primarily brick. So the applicant did provide a breakdown which showed 50% brick, but based on their breakdown, it totaled only up to 98%. I believe before this meeting, Ms. Ernak clarified that it's 52% brick, which would bring the total up to 100%. So at this time, the proposed building materials on the facade percentages do meet what is recommended by the ordinance. One of the requirements of the BROD district and the senior housing is to provide details on the facade itself that actually enhance the building. The east and west elevations, if you look above on the screen, they have pole supports for the main entrances into the building on those sides. Director Power, if you could point out at those white poles at the ends of the buildings. We had recommended that the applicant add brick to these pillars, just sort of as a wraparound to the poles, because it definitely enhances the appearance of a building. The applicant was initially very reluctant, but then had some reasons which we don't believe really would impact the addition of a brick. I find this no different than the overall building improvement in the architecture has been dramatic, but the poles that are supporting the balcony still appear like are, not to sound critical, but before we had gas stations with the canopies being supported by steel poles till the township started requiring brick wraps around them, and now the appearance of the canopies is totally different. It enhances it. So I do believe addition of a brick cover to support poles or pillars, whatever you would call it, for the balconies is a definite enhancement and is the recommendation that we would continue to make. The Planning Commission had reviewed this previously and had provided feedback for this project before it went to BZA. And the Planning Commission had held fast that the BROD standards were up there and they wanted every project to actually make an effort to meet, if not exceed, the standards. After all, a building built of brick is intended to last here for the next 50+ years. So you would want an architecture that would last and that would endure through time. So our recommendations on the architecture of the main building continue. One of the other recommendations and feedbacks the Planning Commission had brought back is consideration to splitting up the accessory buildings into smaller units. Right now, they are set as 2 long buildings with multiple garage doors, which gave the impression of a self-storage unit kind of thing. The Planning Commission suggestion was you can still have the same amount of garages, but why not provide a break in the middle of the building, which would in fact make it look like smaller compact garages. The scale is more palatable when it looks like smaller buildings than one long, short building with just a lot of garage doors entering and exiting out of it. With regard to dumpster, the applicant once again had previously shown a dumpster. Here is the elevation for the building. The applicant has enhanced the architecture of the garages too through the addition of bricks and with the asphalt shingle roof. But once again, the fact that it has got at least about 10 garage doors in a single straight line gives it visually mass that takes away from its appeal. The same thing broken up into 2 smaller structures would actually make it look much, much better. So we continue to support Planning Commission's previous suggestion to the applicant, and at this time we would like to qualify that as a recommendation as an improvement to the site. The details of the dumpster have not been included in this packet submittal, although a dumpster pad is shown on the northwest corner of the site. Once again, the dumpster needs to be constructed of brick to match the main building and provided with steel reinforced wooden gates. That detail needs to be added. With regard to signs, the applicant has proposed a sign at the entrance to Belleville Road, and the sign area dimensions conform to what is required by the ordinance. But the sign design does not meet what is required of a monument sign. The sign proposed by the applicant is a decorative sign supported by 2 pillars. Our ordinance requires a monument base, which means it must extend the entire width of the sign must be minimum 24 inches. It has to be built of masonry. In this case, since the building is going to be built of brick, the base of the sign will be 24 inches of brick, and then the sign can be placed on top of that. So that change needs to be made at this time. And finally, the location of all outdoor mechanical equipment. The one question we had was there is a transformer unit shown on the east side of the main access drive, between the access drive and the outlaw. It's unclear why there is a transformer. Yes, why a transformer is in the middle of, it's just in the middle of a no man's area. So not sure what it is intended to support. If it is for support of the main building, there has to be an alternate location where it can possibly be screened rather than just sit by itself in a green area next to a sidewalk. As I mentioned, the applicant has worked with the township over months. They have been before the Board of Zoning Appeals multiple times. They have received some variances, been denied others. They have been receptive to constructive comments from the township and have made lots of changes to the site plan. We believe the site plan is in a good shape at this time, and we are comfortable recommending that the Planning Commission grant preliminary site plan approval to Clover Community Senior Housing, subject to the following conditions: Wayne County approval of detention pond landscaping, approval of the stormwater detention calculations by the township engineer in Wayne County, submission of the photometric lighting plan addressing all of the issues that are mentioned in our letter, revision of the garage elevation to break up the building into smaller size, wrapping round of brick to the pole supports for the balconies, submission of details for the proposed dumpster enclosure, revision of the sign design to include monument base, and relocation of the transformer pad. These are design items that can be addressed and resubmitted at the time of final site plan approval. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. I'd like to go to Fishbeck's review at this point, and then we'll hear from the applicant. So, Mr. Kammer, what have you got to tell us on engineering?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Thompson. You guys can hear me okay? Yes.
Yes, I
Okay.
think we can.
So not to rehash kind of the overview of what the site is all about, we will jump directly into the utilities on site. And just as a reminder, at this time, Fishbeck examines and reviews the feasibility of the engineering aspects of the site, but does not conduct a full engineering review until the engineering submittal, which is after preliminary site plan submittal. As we've spoken before, previous site plan was recommended for engineering feasibility in our letter dated August 17th of 2020. General comments, the biggest general comment that we would like to see is soil boring information for the site itself. I believe the applicant did procure soil borings on site, but we would like to see that information. Moving on to the water main and water main service. The existing township GIS system indicates that there is a publicly owned 12-inch AC pipe water main that runs north and south along the east side of Belleville Road. The applicant's plan indicates a proposed 8-inch water main loop around the proposed building, connecting to the existing water main on the east side of Belleville Road. It connects in two separate places, one near the north side of the property, and then one just on the south side of the driveway entrance to Belleville Road. The plans indicate that there is a fire service lead, water service lead, and 4 proposed hydrants and valves around the site. The main concerns that we have at this point in our review is that the water main easement and the water main itself needs to be cleared of proposed landscaping, trees, signs, and other elements. The water main loop that runs on the south side of the new driveway runs directly underneath the landscaping trees through the corridor of the driveway, as well as directly underneath the monument sign near the road. This tends to occur throughout the newly aligned water main, both on the north side of the building, the south side of the building, and then along the driveway, as we mentioned. I won't get into the specifics of where the water main can go or should go, but there is some area in which the water main can be shifted slightly to give the township DPW enough room to work in case there's ever a future problem for maintenance. And that way we are not removing the landscape items that are required as part of planning commission, removing trees, and then having to have the applicant put them back. We've laid out some suggestions as to areas that they can put the water main, and we will work with the applicant and the township water and sewer department to locate the water main in better locations, slightly within the reasonable alignment of what they show now. One of the areas that concerned us is, and this will go for the sanitary sewer as well, is that there's a configuration of a cluster of utilities that is right near the driveway entrance and the sanitary and the stormwater detention forebay that shows multiple crossings of utilities. And we believe that the applicant can come up with a simpler layout of all the utilities on site, again, to allow for the township DPW and water and sewer to maintain their utilities in an easier fashion without having to dig around or make sure that they're not hitting the existing utilities that are on site in future years. Engineering plans must include proposed and existing information on how the water main is planned on being installed across Belleville Road. This includes the tapping method of how they're going to tap into the existing line, the methodology, the profiles, and everything that goes along with how they plan on getting to the east side of Belleville Road. This approval will be required from Wayne County as well, and will be part of, or should be part of, the engineering submittal. The final item on water main is that the township will require an additional valve placed on the existing 12-inch water main on the east side of Belleville Road. This valve will be placed in between the two connecting points for the water main loop. And what this does is this allows the township to shut down portions of water, of their water main, without disrupting service to the facility. That way, if there is a break on the water main along Belleville Road, they can isolate one of two of the connections and still backfeed it from the other direction. And that is a requirement that came from the township water and sewer director. Moving on to the sanitary sewer. Like the water main, the township GIS indicates that there is a 8-inch public sanitary sewer that runs on the east side of Belleville Road that connects into a larger 10-inch sanitary sewer further south at Tyler Road. The applicant is proposing to install two, now this is a change from the last time, but two 6-inch private sanitary leads from the building that flow into a singular 8-inch PVC private line, which then eventually converges into what is a proposed public sanitary sewer main that runs east and west and across Belleville Road to the east. Now, this portion of the sanitary sewer is considered public because if the outlet gets developed, it will become multiple taps on that sewer and must be a public sewer at that point that is maintained by the township. As far as comments on the layout go, due to the segment of sanitary that's being used for the future expansion, because of the public aspect of that sewer, the applicant must submit for an Eagle Part 41 permit, which they will work with the township to get approval from Eagle for the public sanitary sewer. Like I mentioned with the water, the configuration of the utilities in near the driveway and the detention basin forebay needs some work. This includes sanitary, and we will work with the applicant to push some of those utilities maybe on the east side of the driveway and relieve some of the congestion that is there. Finally, the engineering plans must include, like the water main, how the sanitary sewer is planned on being installed across Belleville Road to the east side of the road. Again, this must show methodology profiles, how much area they're going to disturb, because on the east side, as we know, there's residential properties that they will be disrupting. They are within the road right of way, but it still will be a disruption to those residents, and we need to make sure that we account for all areas of work on those properties. Finally, the storm, sewer, and stormwater management of the site. Currently, there are no existing storm sewers along Belleville Road adjacent to the development. Stormwater runoff along Belleville Road is conveyed in open ditch, in an open ditch that runs through driveway culverts. To the west side of the property kind of splits, and the west side of the property flows to the west, the east side of the property flows towards Belleville Road. The applicant is proposing to collect stormwater using a proposed privately owned storm sewer system that is conveyed on site and then into an on-site drainage basin. According to the plan's stormwater narrative, the stormwater pond with a forebay will be sized to accommodate stormwater from the subject site and future development of the out parcel. The pond is oversized for preliminary detention design and will likely be reduced during the detailed engineering design. Now, we've talked with the engineer, and Currently, it is oversized. Their hope is that by use of some of the other BMPs, other drainage areas on site, that they'll be able to reduce the footprint of the detention pond that is on site. Currently, the plans indicate a proposed emergency outflow spillway that sheet flows to the west onto the adjacent property. And there is no outlet indicated in the basin of the existing storm sewer or stormwater system. We've had conversations with the applicant about Wayne County's, I don't want to say unlikely approval, but in previous jobs, we have seen that Wayne County does not like to approve overflow routes off-site. They want to keep all stormwater and overflows within their own site. And what we've asked the applicant to do at this time is to start the conversations with Wayne County. This is the best way for the applicant to get through stormwater approval by starting the conversations early with Wayne County, having a back and forth with us and Wayne County, and really just getting the approval from both parties to move forward. That is the biggest hurdle, I think, at this point, is getting through the Wayne County stormwater section. However, the site is large enough that if a straight retention pond, which is no outlet, no overflow, nothing, I believe that they could accommodate this. And that is one of the areas that we will be discussing and working with the applicant on. Finally, one thing to note with stormwater to the applicant and to everybody here is that Van Buren Township does have its own township requirements as far as detention goes, and the applicant must meet those even if Wayne County approves their design and their outflow. Van Buren Townships is more restrictive, and the applicant must meet that as well. Finally, the applicant must submit for a Wayne County soil erosions permit. They have included plans as part of the package, and those will need to be approved by Wayne County. So at this time, we are recommending that the Planning Commission grant Clover Senior Housing preliminary site plan approval based on engineering feasibility, subject to the comments that are listed in our letter and in accordance with the Township Engineering Standards Manual. If there are any questions from the Planning Commission, I'm happy to answer them, but that is all that we have at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Kamer. I know it's preliminary on engineering, but still very thorough. I'd also like to note that we received from the fire marshal a copy of the letter of reviewing the revised site plan and noting that all applicable NFPA codes and standards apply and outlining for the applicant what those are. So we have that. I'll ask Ms. Arna if she has anything to share with us at this point, and then we'll have discussion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I will briefly blow through a presentation here. Lots of pictures, so we can do it kind of quickly. We appreciate all the comments and reviews, and I intend to address some of the comments that were brought up tonight. So we did provide some additional information to the Planning Commission, to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I did want to share that with you. Here's just kind of a 3D rendering of what our units look like. We do have, bedrooms, bathrooms, dining rooms, kitchens, bedroom, full living area with balcony or porch for all the units. Some of the units are 1 bedroom, most of the units are 2 bedrooms. And then we have some 2 bedrooms with 1 bath and some 2 bedrooms with 1.5 baths. Inside features our coffee bar, game room, community room, and can't quite see it, but this goes out to the patio. In the patio area, we do have communal grills and seating, umbrellas, some passive recreation area. Have a community library, seating room. We kind of went through the special use already, and I appreciate Dan sharing the site plan with everyone. Just some of the summaries that we have been able to meet all the requirements listed here. One of the biggest things that's happened since our last discussion was we did shift this entry. And we agree that this is a better location for our entry. We're happy to do this. It moves the out parcel, which would eventually become a corner lot if Robson Road were to be extended here. But this provides a nice path, the sidewalk path to the Belleville Road. And it's not a huge change to our plan. It did affect some of the tree areas, so this side was a little bit more heavily wooded. So we did, will be removing additional trees due to that location. These are in general just a floor plan showing how the unit mix. Our large community room is central to the entry. The elevator is central to the entry as well. And then there's areas of relief throughout the building. Here's just a closer view of the front elevation, north elevation. And then as Vidya mentioned, I'm not sure where the calculations were off, but our calculations are brick would be 52%, the hardy plank siding would be 25%, wood is 16%, and vinyl is 7% of the building. Elevation of the garage. And then this is a similar project that is actually going in Canton. The color scheme here is a little bit different than the building would be in Van Buren due to the neutral color palette desired. But, in general, this is more of a picture of what the building would look like. We do have similar projects in process right now in Canton, as well as Auburn Hills and Alpine Township. So as promised, I kept that pretty brief. Jared Kime, our engineer, is with us. So I just want to, ask Jared if he had anything to add, and then I'll circle back with a couple more items.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, I mean, in general, thanks everybody for your time tonight and your thorough review of the plans there. In addressing the engineering comments, in general, we will work with the engineer, with the township, with the county to make sure that they're satisfied with all of the design plans and get all of the necessary permits during the engineering review phase. We have reached out to Wayne County to have that stormwater comment. They provided very, very generic preliminary feedback, and we're still waiting for more thorough discussion at this point in time. We're hopeful that in the near future we'll be able to advance that conversation, but it's been very slow to get any sort of reaction. But even just today on another project I'm working on in Canton Township. We received notification that Wayne County has hired an outside consultant, OHM, to perform some of their stormwater reviews. So we're hopeful that that similar notification will be happening for this project in the near future, and we can really move that forward. So looking forward to some advancement there. The lighting plan, yes, we acknowledge that we did not resubmit a new lighting plan here. I guess with the change in the drive relocation, we wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission is happy with that relocation before we update the full photometric plan for that. So upon your approval, we will certainly go back and update the photometric plan to meet all of the township requirements. So we can expect that to get to meet all of your ordinance requirements there for approval.
Jared, let me chime in on that real
Mhm.
quick. As far as the lighting plan, we have no intention to have wall pack lights on the rear of the garage. So that's something that would definitely be addressed.
From the thanks, Beth. From the architecture side, Beth already touched on the update to the miscalculation on the material percentage there. So I think that's been addressed.
Let me jump in here again on that one. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Beth.
Being rude, I did forget that I wanted to show you. Hopefully, give me 1 second here. So we understand the comment. This has kind of been a revolving comment. We don't necessarily agree completely on it being similar to a gas station canopy, but what we'd like to do is propose a brick wrap around the base of the poles. For structural reasons that would require redesign of the building, we would not seek to take that all the way to the ceiling, but we would have a matching brick to the building wrap that would go along the base of the pole. Oh, I'm sorry. And while it's still my turn, I would like to show you something else real quick. Also with the monument sign, we have updated our sign, and I believe, oh, wrong one. While Jared finishes up, I will flash the monument sign that we're proposing on the screen here in just 1 second.
I have that up right now, Beth.
Oh,
if
thank you,
don't have
Jared.
it.
Okay.
Share that real quick. So here is a sample of what a monument sign would look like for the project here. Obviously, this is a little bit of a stacked stone base. Our base would be the same brick to match the building here. But basically taking the pole type sign that we have there and just implementing a monument style there. So while we don't have a specific dimensional detail for that yet, essentially we'd be taking more or less the detail that's provided on the plans here, providing a base to that, and then the solid board in there to create the monument sign with the same dimensional parameters. So of course, the final sign on this would be submitted for permit, and then the name of the sign obviously won't be Pleasant Run. So where else were we? We talked about the pole support brick wrap. I guess the last thing that comes up there that we need to speak about is the garage separations, right? So basically, the concern is that the two garages of 10 units appears too, I guess, daunting of a size when you're looking at it from your window there. But separating those the garages into 4 or 5 unit buildings there, you still are looking out your window. Even if those buildings are only separated by 15 feet, you're still seeing 20 garages on that side of the building. All we've simply done is elongate it so that it appears to be, if we had 2 15-foot sections, there's going to be a 30-foot longer span that you're looking at. And, the impact of that is that we end up having to build an additional, on that one side, plus the units on the backside, we have to build an additional 8 walls, which are halfway up with brick on it, just to expand that out an extra 30 feet. Yet you're still looking at the same 20 garage doors in that span there. So we have, we would like to keep the standard 10 unit buildings there. That's a nice even dimensional unit for them to construct at that. And we don't feel that it's a significant visual differentiation if we were to add a 15-foot gap within that. So. Beth, is there any other additional items that we needed to touch on?
No, I don't think so. And just apologies for getting the dumpster enclosure information. We'll get that to you as well. But I thank you for your patience. I know this has been a long process for all of us.
Well, you've obviously done a lot of work, and I think what we'll do is have some questions and answers from the commission, possibly the audience now, but if there's anything that we need to come back to you for, you're here for us, so that's great.
Perfect.
Thank you. So, planning commissioners, questions or comments for the applicant, for staff, for the planner, for the engineer? Anyone?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Jarl?
I have a question for Ms. Krishnan. On the brick wrap for the columns, was it your intention for this brick wrap to go 3 stories up, or were you thinking that a base type wrap would be acceptable?
The intent, my recommendation was for the brick wrap to go all the way to the top. No offense intended. I think the applicant got a bit offended when I referenced to gas station canopies. It was not said in an offending manner. It was the closest example I could think of on the fly. So no offense intended there. But I think in the sign detail that Mr. Kime showed, you could see in the background the building at a distance. And if you can visualize what a brick wrap would do, it would just make the building look so much prettier. So I still believe wrapping the brick all the way around to the top is just going to make it look great, or at least wrap the brick around to the same height that the brick is on the building facade. So it sort of will tie the whole building in, because it'll look like a cohesive part. If the brick goes up to a certain point, wrap the brick on the pillars also to that point, and it's going to make the building look that much attractive. So that was my recommendation.
Thank you.
One
If I could ask from Clover, what was your intent on bringing the wrap up? How high were you going to bring it?
Beth, you're still on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We would prefer to keep it on the first story, but we're agreeable to where the brick is to following that.
Yeah, and the one point that I would point out there that should be considered is that when you look at the building elevations there, the columns where we have the porches coming out there, that's all the vertical white board and batten sections there. So we would actually be adding brick in front of the white, and I'm not sure if that would create an odd contrast there versus the white poles in front of the white.
My comment is I do agree with Ms. Krishnan that the brick wrap is an aesthetic detail that you should consider. I don't know whether going all the way to the top it would necessarily work, given that it's batten board partway up, but I'd hope that you would consider that before a final site plan review, and we could arrive at an aesthetically pleasing solution.
Yeah.
I have a question for Director Power. You submitted in the packet a memo in which you also, I believe, had a recommendation about new construction and landscaping being limited within 30 foot of the north property line. Could you touch on that for just a moment? Is that a recommendation that you would like us to consider before granting a preliminary site plan approval?
It is something that I would like you to consider. I would just say that the intention there is to make sure that there's a reasonable way to make sure that this project does not put itself in a situation where if there is a future road connection and a future right of way, like Ms. Krishnan said, we want to make sure the building is still set back sufficiently from that. I would also prefer to see that there's no new landscaping that will have to be altered if there is a road right of way that goes in. My only observation with this set of plans with respect to that comment is that there are a few trees planted, replanted in that northern area, and maybe they could just shift those down a little bit so that if there is a future right of way in that area, it could be left clear and they don't have to do any rework or go back in there.
So if I could, again, jump in here to touch base on that. So the majority of the landscape and screening that's happening on that northern property line is actually existing preserved landscaping there. So I would recommend that when that future road gets planned to come in there, because it kind of comes in and kind of straddles the property line there, that once you maybe get away from that immediate intersection, maybe that road shifts north 30 feet so that it aligns directly with that property line and would allow us to preserve the majority of that natural vegetation that's providing that screen there. So that right of way would abut our northern property line versus straddling it.
Yeah, I think there's enough flexibility in the future planning to allow slight design changes like that. And I think this plan only minimally would affect that area. And so I think that's a fair thing to say. And I think it may be that there would be no alterations to the landscaping as shown.
Yeah, and we're comfortable with that.
Okay, thanks for answering the questions. I don't have any more questions or comments at this time.
Thanks, Commissioner Jar. Other questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chairman, I have a couple.
Sure, Commissioner Cullen.
Yeah, I was concerned about the traffic study. I'm worried about, there's 128 units there with people 55 years and up making left-hand turns into that building, especially with Myers so close. Is that going to back traffic up? Is that going to affect traffic flow, especially at rush hour?
So from the traffic study, no, I think those are great questions and no offense with them at all. I think from the traffic study and our experience, I mean, we do have over 55 other projects. Our folks typically are not peak time users. So we are a super low traffic generator. You know, our folks go out on Sundays for church, they go out to the grocery store, doctor visits, which all usually correspond at anti-peak times. So at peak times, I think the maximum that we show is 3 movements. So I really, you know, from an operations standpoint, that's really important to us. We don't want to open a building that people can't get to and get out of and don't want to rent from us. But we really do feel very comfortable with the location. The possible future expansion of Robson, I think, is great. We do show a future connection if Robson would be expanded, which would minimize even more so those movements. So I think as the area develops further, that, you know, we're pretty well poised with the township coming in with the suggestion to move the driveway. We're pretty well poised to have a more cohesive strategy when it gets more busy there.
Okay. What concerns me is Meyer is 3/4 of a mile down the street, and that's probably where majority of them are going to do their shopping.
Yep.
Access in is a left-hand turn, And there's still a fair amount of people that are 55 years and older that are out working.
Yes,
So
yeah. So
those
our
are my concerns. And I know what Belleville Road is like in the middle of the afternoon.
I do too. So I'm a local, just so you know, I live in the area myself, and I'm more of an Aldi and Menards person. But I do frequent Belleville Road, and I understand your concern. Just to note that even though we're a 55 and older community, our average resident is usually about 81. So we
It doesn't
don't.
surprise me, but it's still
Right.
the opportunity is there.
It is, just, based on historical usage, we don't have a lot of working folks still with us, but we do have a lot of folks who volunteer. But still, their timelines tend not to be peak time. And your concern is completely valid, and it's something that our operations team looks at, every project that we have.
And there's also single family homes on the other side. That's
Yep.
a concern as well. I know when I was in school, I graduated from Belleville High, so I grew up in Quirk Sub, so I understand that area very well. And I had a fair amount of friends that lived in that general area.
Right.
As well as the trailer park being right there.
Yep.
And I get concerned over school buses and things of that nature. If that causes a problem, I don't understand why we haven't widened Belleville Road anyways. We go from 5 to 2 to 4. That just doesn't make a lot of sense, but.
We can't solve that one for you, but we completely understand.
Another concern I had was, is that with that monument sign, will that be lit? Will there be lights on that sign some way to identify it from the road?
I'm actually gonna ask Matt to chime in here. Do we have, if we do, it would only be a spotlight to the sign.
That's fine. I'm worried about an elderly person at 7 o'clock in the wintertime trying to find the driveway.
Yeah,
No,
and I guess ultimately, I think we would defer to Dan or Vidya on that if the ordinance allows for uplighting of a sign.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
It does.
then
Yeah.
then yes.
The
then we-
sign's intent is identification. If the sign is not visible, then it doesn't serve its purpose. So as long as the light is directed in a manner only to illuminate the sign and not shine out as light pollution, it is definitely allowed by the ordinance.
Okay, yep, then we will likely have some, a little bit of uplighting at the sign there.
Thank you.
Yep. To answer your question, Commissioner Cullen, I was just pulling up another image from our sign, and yes, they are illuminated up towards the sign from the ground. But we would work with whatever's permitted in code.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Cullen?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Great, good questions. Other questions or comments from the commission? Anyone want to talk about garage? Anyone have an opinion or a preference for the length of the garages?
Madam Chair, I do have a,
Commissioner Jones?
I tend to agree with Ms. Krishnan on this, that the breaking up the garages would definitely give a more aesthetically appealing look. I understand that there are construction concerns there. I understand that aesthetics are also in the eye of the beholder. So I'm certainly willing to listen if any of the other commissioners have an opinion on the matter. I'd be curious to hear what it was.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kelly?
I would agree with Commissioner Jar. I like the idea of breaking it up so it's not one long set of garage doors down the entire length of the building. I think the recommendation is a very good recommendation and a good thing to consider.
Thank you.
Chair? Madam Chair?
Sure.
Uh,
I'm sorry,
Good.
Ms. Krishnan.
The reason we recommend actually the garage units being broken up, I understand what Mr. Kime is saying, that it's going to result in the construction of 8 additional walls. I think he's looking at it from the standpoint of an engineer. It's simple, seamless, one block. I'm looking at it from a planner's perspective, where breaking up of a building reduces its mass. It gives, even though the distance of separation between those two might be just 15 feet, it definitely has an impact on the human eye. As seen, it gives an illusion of it being a smaller entity than a single long block wall. So partly it is also the standpoint from which you view it from an engineering standpoint. It's probably clean, simple, straight, 4 sides, 4 walls. From a planning standpoint, not so much. So that is the reason why we do have architectural guidelines in most districts, including residential, where we say you need to have a relief feature for every so many feet. The whole intent is to break up a facade. So I can see where you're coming from, but I think that's definitely a recommendation. Like the brick wrap in the long run will be beneficial to the appearance of the site as a whole.
And we're willing to split the garages. It's not, it would not be our preference, but we are willing to do it.
All right, and let me double check any one from the public who wishes to speak to this agenda item. Doesn't look like it. Anything else from the commissioners? I just wanted to make a note that when we started to create the ordinance for senior housing, I think we had some very high hopes. And Ms. Airnott, you were a part of that process and offered us a nice insight into how your side of the business works. And I think that helped shape the ordinance that we have today. And I think that we're very excited about Clover coming to Van Buren Township, but I think we also want our first one out of the gate to be as great as we can possibly make it. And you have worked very, very hard to try and meet not only the letter of the ordinance, but our intentions and our hopes and what we would like to make possible for the seniors in Van Buren Township. So it's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate you working with us.
All right. I think if there's no other comments, then we are ready to take action on a preliminary site plan. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kelly.
I move to grant the applicant Clover Communities of Van Buren LLC preliminary site plan approval for the construction of a proposed senior housing facility located at 8470 Belleville Road, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the McKenna report dated March 17th, 2021, the Fishbeck report dated March 17th, 2021, the Van Buren Fire report dated March 8th, 2021, and with some specific references to the concerns and clarifications raised by Director Powers and Commissioner Jar regarding landscaping, setbacks, and brick wrap.
Great. Is there support?
Madam Chair, I support that motion.
Thanks, Commissioner Jar. And a roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Carol Thompson.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much, Ms. Airnott, Mr. Keim. We appreciate you spending time with us tonight and clarifying. And we look forward to seeing you back for final.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks, you too. We are to new business in tonight's agenda. The first item under new business is the Yost Road or preliminary variance discussion. The applicant, Rob Wagner of Midwestern Consulting, has applied for a discussion of a potential setback variance to allow the construction of a 5,400 square foot roof structure to be used for sheltering a waste transfer area to encroach within 0.5 feet of the side yard lot line, contrary to section 4.102 of the zoning ordinance, which requires a 40-foot setback in the M1 light industrial zoning district. The location is 44145 Yost Road, parcel number 83009990004001. The site is located on the north side of Yost Road and east of Sheldon Road. Director Power, want to tell us how this came before us and where we're at with it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try to just zero everybody in on what site we're talking about to give a little bit of context so that we can jump right into what we're presenting here. And I do intend for this to be a short discussion. I very much appreciate the patience of the applicants for this case and for the last item on tonight's agenda. Although I think there was a very important discussion on the last case, so I'm glad we had that. But I'll try to make efficient use of our time moving forward here. So let me just zoom in. Hopefully this works using our new map tool here. So if you zero in on this particular case on tonight's agenda, where we are talking about is on the very northern edge of the township on Yost Road, east of Belleville Road, where there is it's actually east of Sheldon Road. So this is where there's some industrial properties in a triangular part of the township. What exists here at this site is a long-standing solid waste transfer station. It's a place where the waste from businesses is brought and transferred, just like the name indicates. It has been a site that includes some covered building area as well as some open storage area. And as part of the new owners purchasing this property and renewing a license to continue this use, the state of Michigan, Eagle, actually has required that their storage area, their staging area for some of the waste has to actually be covered by a roofed shelter, and which makes a lot of sense environmentally. But what you find with the constraints of this site, in order to continue this use here and keep that operation safe and free of environmental hazards, more or less, and to keep the debris from flying around, is to have that covered area. But it has to be in a very tight corner of the site next to some property lines. And so the variance request is to have this roof shelter where Eagle is requesting the applicant to do so. In doing so, it's got to be within about a half foot of that southern property line, which is the rear yard, as well as about close to 8 feet from the side property line to the west, which is the side yard. This is a plan that's going to be presented again to the Planning Commission as a formal site plan review, but in typical fashion for things that go through site plan review, but first have to take a detour, so to speak, to the BZA for a variance request. If there's any zoning issues like this, we invite the Planning Commission to state their comments on it. So what I'm really asking for is for the Planning Commission, maybe to hear a little bit from the applicant, but really just on the site plan, just to focus on the setbacks aspect of this site plan for now. Feel free to kind of review this, digest it, send me your comments, and whatever comments you have for me on the setback issue specifically, we will include in our submittal to the BZA. So this is the plan. Again, I guess I will ask if the applicant wants to add anything about their project at this time. We have Kevin Ramirez and Rob Wagner representing this group.
Looks like Vidya has her hand up.
There you go. Yes, good point. Vidya Christian, feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Before Mr. Wagner speaks, I just wanted to provide a slight clarification. The agenda states that it's a waste transfer for sheltering a waste transfer area to encroach to within 0.5 of the side yard lot line. That's actually slightly misstated. It's 0.5 feet from the rear yard. So this is located in an M1 district. The required setbacks are 50 feet for the front yard, 50 feet for the side yard, and 50 feet for the rear yard. The proposed addition will be located 0.5 feet from the rear yard and 7.89 feet from the side yard. So just want to clarify that the variance they'll be going for is from 2 yards, the rear yard that is next to the railroad line and the side yard that is on the left side of your screen. So just wanted to provide a little bit clarification. I think the phrasing on the agenda can be a little confusing. So just wanted to provide the clarification. Sorry for the interruption, Mr. Wagner, please go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, Director Powers. My name's Rob Wagner with Midwestern Consulting. and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner and operator, South Yost LLC. Kevin Ramirez is also in the meeting and available should you have any questions directly for the operator. But a lot of what I made notes to talk about, Director Powers and Vidya has mentioned already. So I'm just going to quickly go through a list of some points that I have that weren't really spoken, but I just wanted to explain this size of the parcel is 1.5 acres. And we are proposing this 5,400 square foot structure, not really a building, but it's a roof structure like Director Powers was saying, to be a windbreaker, a three-sided windbreaker to shield the garbage. The purpose, like he said, is for an outdoor waste transfer area. And he did say it was required by Eagle. I just wanted to say, you know, this structure is a state mandated structure. And the reason the state is making the owner do this is because in the last couple of years, this property changed ownership. Eagle is requiring new approvals and permits for this structure. But the owner did want me to point out that the state permit that's been issued for this is based on the structure being located in the proposed location you see in front of you right here. Some hardships, I guess, that we can state on our behalf would be that the existing building is non-compliant. It's in the setback, as you can see right there. The proposed structure, we're tying into foundations of the existing structure that's already in the setback. And the owner also mentioned to me today that this structure previously was permitted, you know, in the past. It just was not built. This waste transfer station has been operating like this since the 1970s. And some things I was thinking of today too is that the existing loading dock that the structure is covering is already in both of the setbacks that you see. And then if you see the neighbor to the west, and actually if you look to the neighbor to the east, they're also in both setbacks there. So we're basically doing, you know, proposing the same thing that has been done, you know, on both sides of us. And also the rear setback, just, I mean, you can see that it's the Michigan Central Railroad, but it's not like we're in a setback from a residential unit. It's a railroad right away right there. So, I mean, we're just here tonight to request the Planning Commission's that you would recommend that the BZA approve these variances at their upcoming meeting on April 13th. And if they do, if you do and they do, we would look forward to being in front of you in a future meeting to present the site plan.
Great, thanks, Mr. Wagner. That's helpful. I'll ask for questions or comments from the commission for the applicant or for staff.
Director Power? Pardon me, Madam Chair. May I?
Sure, Commissioner Jar, jump right in.
Sorry about that.
No, that's good. You're fine.
Is the railroad subject to notification before the BZA meeting?
They are an adjacent property owner, and it's interesting you ask because we are sending notices in the next couple of business days. I know that it can be notoriously difficult to find the correct address for them. So we will be doing the best we can, but they will be subject to notification.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner, you said that the structure was at one time permitted but wasn't built. How long ago was that?
I'm going to ask Kevin, do you remember, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys' time tonight. I'm not 100% sure. The plans that we had, there was plans that we've got from the prior ownership, And they're pretty old, and I'll grab a date on it and I can definitely get it back to you guys. One thing that I might add too is a lot of the storm system and everything on this site has been set up according to those plans, and we're just executing the plans to make it conform with the state requirements.
Thanks. Last question. When did the ownership change?
Roughly about 2 years ago. We had to go through quite a thing with the state, because the state has to transfer the existing license, and they've got to approve the water runoff and everything, and that has happened. You know, we've got all our state approvals. The license was issued, but this was one of the conditions of the license also.
Okay, thank you. That's all of my questions.
Great. Other questions or comments from the commission? I'll ask. Director Power, do you know the dimensions of the easement for the railroad? What's that distance we're looking at?
I will, for now, I don't actually know, and I would actually defer to the owner if they might know. I'm not sure if you do, but I will certainly come back to the Planning Commission with that information at the next meeting.
Great.
I mean, we've surveyed it, and we have the distance. I mean, you can see that 82 feet. So it's, you know, it's probably 45 feet, something like that, but we could dimension that for you.
Okay, that's just a rough is good. Thank you.
Director Power, if I can interject for a moment. Are we
Sure.
having a BZA meeting before this will come back to Planning Commission, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Madam Chair, if the applicant could just clarify, Mr. Wagner, isn't there already like a brick wall or something separating the south property line from the railroad right of way? You already have something, right? A fence or a wall or something?
Yep. And I didn't bring that up because I knew that was that's another item. That's a site plan item you had mentioned in your letter. But yeah, there's an existing block wall and a fence along the south property line that I actually have a picture of that I could display on the screen if you want to see it. But that's, you know, that is existing, and that would be what we'd be proposing as the green belt buffering in that area.
Right. I think it'll help the Planning Commission to understand that even though your addition is going to be on the south side, your storage is not going to encroach into the railroad's right of way or their easement, because the block wall is there. Anything you do will be contained on your site. I think it helps give that perspective. That's why I mentioned it. If you have a picture,
Yep.
and you could share it, that would be great too.
Let me pull that up.
A lot of the parcels on Yost Road are existing legal non-conforming sites. The sites are either too small, the buildings were built probably predating our zoning ordinance. So many of them are non-conforming, and their existing footprints kind of limits what can be done with these parcels, even if they are required under the law to bring them as much up to compliance with code as possible.
So yeah, that's the wall and the existing fence and the existing loading dock that South Yost LLC plans to cover with this shelter structure.
That is helpful. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just doing a quick measurement on the aerial imagery that we have. This looks like it's a typical 100-foot railroad right-of-way or easement. So I think that's a pretty typical dimension for railroads, and that appears to be what we have on our parcel data as well.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. I was going to ask if anyone in the audience wanted to speak to this agenda item.
I see no hands raised.
Okay. Are you looking for, Director Power, are you looking for consensus? Are you looking for a motion?
Just for not even necessarily consensus, just to let you know about this case and to feel free to to know that we will share the comments from tonight's meeting, this section of the minutes in the BZA's packet. And if you have anything else you'd like the BZA to consider, just like with recent cases, feel free to send the comments you have over to me in an email anytime before the meeting, and we can share those.
Good, thank you. I just wanted to note that this is, although the applicant is in this situation that needs to require the variance, it is because of a state mandate requirement that none of us can control. So for that reason, I would be supportive of their request for the variance, as long as it meets all of the other requirements that the BZA would be considering.
Through the chair,
Sure, Commissioner Pike.
Carol, that would be my concern too. It's mandated by the state. And so I would definitely work in their favor to help them get through it as long as they meet all the other recommendations.
Okay. Great. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Sure, Director Kelly.
I'm in agreement as well, given the what is adjoining the property as it is and where the fence and everything lines up. I think working with them to try to bring it into compliance with state law would be in our best interest.
Thank you. Great. Okay, and as Director Power said, anyone has any other thoughts as you consider this after the meeting, get back to him. We have until April 13th before it goes to the BZA. And thanks so much to the applicant for being with us tonight. And we look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you, Madam
your
Chair.
time.
Yes. All right, we are to item 2 under new business. This is Hull Road and vicinity irrigation ponds. The applicant, KW Land Development, on behalf of the owner, Wilkin Farm Properties, seeks to construct 2 5-acre irrigation ponds for agricultural purposes. This is pursuant to Chapter 42, Article 4 of the Van Buren Township Code of Ordinances. The affected property includes 180.57 acres of land on the south side of Hull Road between Sumter Road and Martinsville Road, including parcel 83134990003701. That is 44605 Hull Road. Parcel 83134990001000, which is 44975 Hull Road. And parcels 83134990002705 and parcel 83133990003701. So I'm going to ask Director Power to introduce this this consideration for us, and then we'll hear what the applicant has to say.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Waller, Mr. Arquette, Mr. Farmer. This has been exercise in patience for you all, so thanks for being at this meeting. And I will say that this is something that you will see again, just like with that Yost Road case. So I'll just take a quick opportunity to give you an overview of why you're looking at something like this, and then give you a chance to just have kind of a dialogue with the applicants and put some initial questions out there for when you come back, they come back to their final review with you. I will share, show you where we're referring to. As the chair said, I'm going to zoom in to their site, and roughly where that marker is on the map here, you have Sumter Road, north and south here. You have Hull Road, east and west here. The sort of clear areas on this map are City of Belleville. And so where the marker is where the north proposed pond is. And roughly in this location here is where the south proposed pond is. And I would like to now just show you the plan. And I'll give a little bit of background. Early last fall, I was approached by the applicant and asked what process needs to be undertaken to dig 2 5-acre irrigation ponds for agricultural use. It's a fairly rare question, and so I had to do some digging. to find out. That sounded like a pun, but it wasn't. So we did find that there's an ordinance that the township has that requires the planning commission to review any pond greater than 100 square feet that's used for irrigation or other purposes. And additionally, if digging such a pond requires the excavation of soils that are moved off-site, the township board will actually have to review that request for a request for an excavation permit. So this actually ends up being a fairly involved process. The township engineer and I have worked with the applicant to develop some comments and to get some more detail on these plans with respect to some of the items required in the irrigation ordinance, including that there will be safety signage around these ponds, that the ponds will meet a certain slope not to exceed, I believe it's 4-on-1, that there will be accounting for setbacks in terms of setbacks from the road rights of way, from adjacent properties, from septic fields, and from power lines, and that there will be any necessary information on the hydrology to show that this pond will not discharge in a way that's going to be hazardous to any of the adjacent stormwater network, that it's not going to affect adjacent soil structures or groundwater of the site in a way that impairs the site, the land, the use of the land in the area. So we are still developing our reports, and we have a lot of detailed comments that we've reviewed with the applicant so far. But part of this exercise is that the Planning Commission reviews this, and actually there will be notices that are sent to neighboring properties. And so I just wanted to give you a chance to look at this. These are going to end up being pretty significant sized ponds used for irrigation for the agriculture of this area. They're both 5 acres. It ends up being about 192,000 cubic yards of material that's pulled out of there. So before this gets a final vote from you at a meeting in April, presumably, I just wanted to give you a chance to look at this and state any questions you have, and any basic questions you have for the applicant at this point. Before you do so, I might just recommend that you invite the applicant to make any comments they have about their project.
Sure, that'd be great. Gentlemen, anything that you can share with us? This would be pretty unusual for us, so consider us novices and educate us, please.
I see
All
Mr.
right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak up real quick. Eric Arquette, put together the survey and the drawing there. We're actually doing a revised drawing. It'll be available probably tomorrow. Did you take the screen share down? Could you put that back up, Dan, by chance? Or
Yep, there you go.
okay, terrific. So we wanted to cover all of the bases on this with the all of the ordinance that, oh, we've got to mute. Cover all of everything that was requested in the ordinance, and so we put that up there in the general notes. So we wanted to try to make sure we covered all the bases and show the plan of the location of the ponds, and the design, including freeboard elevation, depth of the ponds, the location, the variable locations for the ponds for access to the irrigation for the farmer as well. So we just kind of tried to encompass which parcels he had and the use as a client proposed for the way they wanted to show the almost an SESC plan to keep the anything from flowing off of the property So there's no runoff, there's no disturbance on adjacent properties. So basically what we're looking at is digging the ponds so that he can irrigate those fields and not contaminate his soils on the property. So they do have to remove that. And then we wanted to make sure that we covered the proper slopes and safety precautions that are set forth in this. So we did do some research with the for the Farm Act and try to do a little bit of background check with Dan as well there. So just trying to comply with everything that we need to for ordinances for an actual agricultural ponds there. So to produce the water that the farmer needs to properly irrigate his parcels.
Anything else from the applicant?
I don't, can you hear me pretty good?
We can hear you. It's a little bit echoey, but let's see how far we get.
I'm fat, so my voice echoes a little bit. I turned it down there. Sorry about that. But anyway, what we have going on here is we're just exposing the water that's already there. And we're not doing anything to disturb any ground that's going to cause any effect on any neighboring or adjacent properties. It's pretty basic irrigation pond where it's just holding water storage, if you will. There's nothing of any impact on the surrounding properties. I know there's been a lot of concerns about discharge of water. Generally, when you dig, you don't have to have any discharge of water. The water can actually stay where you're working at. So that's not necessarily an issue. There's nothing going to be discharging into the local drain or ditches of the properties. It's pretty basic. You need water retention. We're just digging a hole to expose the water that's already there. So we're not going to make anything. I guess what I'm saying is if we dig our retention ponds, it's not going to bring any water onto the property that's not already there. We're just exposing it for the use of the farmer. And
Okay. I had a question. Do you know what the water table is there? Is it pretty high already?
generally in this area, it's about 3 feet.
Okay.
Well, you know, the water table is not nothing that you or anyone else can control. That's work of nature. So the water table is going to be what it is. So I can dig you a pond 30 feet deep, and if you're 10 feet above the water table, before you can reach the water, you're going to have to go 10 feet. So as far as the water table goes, and anywhere south of 94, and the experiences I've had in the last 30 years or more, all the water table generally runs within 3 to 5 feet. Further south you go, the higher the water table.
Okay. Thank you. That's
it's,
helpful.
Can you hear? What'd you say?
Yes, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. Continues to feed if you turn it up. You gotta turn yours off, turn mine on. Is there any other questions anyone you might have?
Yeah, let's see. Any other questions from the commission?
Madam Chair,
Sure, Director Jar.
is
Commissioner
the,
Jar.
yes. Oh, I almost had an upgrade.
There you go.
Is the, to the applicant, is the pond proposed to be lined? I mean, is the water percolating up through a dirt bottom on this pond, or is this a kind of a polyethylene lined pond?
Oh, it's just a standard pond, just as it. Hang on, we got some interference here.
Can you hear me better than you can hear him?
Yes, sir.
All right, so what we were just talking about a minute ago is the water table. So all of this area here in Van Buren Township, there's a high water table. So you can dig like you said, about 3 feet into the ground and you hit water. So there's no need to line the ponds because there's naturally water, not far below the ground. So we propose to dig about 15 feet deep here. And when we get to about 3 feet, we're going to expose water. So all we're doing is exposing the existing groundwater that's there, and that will allow the farmer to access the groundwater that's already there to irrigate his fields.
Understood. My concern was the 3-foot high water table might cause lifting of a lined pond. If the water table pushes up on the storage of the pond. But if it's not a lined pond, it's not an issue. My only other
Okay.
question is, are you planning on installing any underground distribution for water out of the pond to other parts of the property? Or will that all be done above ground in an agricultural manner?
It'll all be done above ground.
Great. Thanks for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Okay, and to go a little further on that, the farmer has a portable pump, so he'll just move his portable pump to either pond, and then he'll just drop a line into the water and he'll pump out whatever water he needs.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Jar. Good questions. That was helpful. Anyone in the audience, questions on this agenda item or comments?
Madam Chair, I see no questions on this agenda item. I do see one general comment that we can address at the end of the meeting if we'd like.
Great.
But no comments on this.
Thank you.
Through the
So-
chair.
Sure, Commissioner Bud.
When I pulled up the parcel numbers, I don't think the drawing that we got in that one paper was, it needs to be reconfigured because the parcel numbers, one of them has been split. So I think we need a clearer vision of how those parcels are parceled out in that, because it doesn't work out with what the records from the treasurer's office shows. And then my other concern is, if he's going to dig these 2 5-acre ponds, does it take that much? And I don't know if it takes that many 10 acres of water to irrigate the property that he's got left after he digs these. And I think the property had been for sale. So how long does he intend to farm it? And are they going to be fenced in? Because we know there are children in the area. And what are we opening up for? I don't know.
Okay, good questions. And then we'll ask staff to take a look at the parcels too and make sure that we get that correct. So we don't permit something that isn't part of the proposal.
I'm not saying they're not right. It's just the one parcel had been split and those numbers aren't, they just all of the parcels aren't reflected there by what we've got.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you.
Just quickly, Madam Chair and
Sure, Director Powell.
Commissioner Budd, in response, that is a concern that we had, and the applicant is addressing that concern. They've clarified they're going to update the survey, which was originally from an older Alta survey, and I think we're tracking now. They understand what the new parcels are that are involved, and they'll be providing updated drawing for that. It will not actually involve that. To my understanding, it will not overlap on that parcel at the corner of Hull and Sumter Road. It's actually 3 large parcels more on the interior of that southeast quadrant of the intersection. So you'll see that on the updated drawing. But to your other questions, I defer to the applicant.
As far as fencing in, we haven't really looked at that. There are some safety devices that are required by the township, and we were willing to do all of the safety devices that are required by the township. These ponds are pretty far, away from the edges of the road. They're pretty far out into the fields, so they're not easily accessible by children or other people. But we are willing to put the safety devices that are required by the township. And as far as irrigation goes, the farmer owns several other farms in the area, and he is the person that requested 2 5-acre ponds to irrigate his property. He said that's what he needed as compared to his other farms. to be able to irrigate that much property. So that's the reason he wants 2 5-acre ponds. And instead of 1 10-acre pond, he wanted to do 2 5 acres to make it easier to pump to reach the different areas of the farm.
Less than 200%.
Thank you.
Um,
Oh,
You know,
So,
and one other issue for safety too is the slope of the ponds. I think Director Power mentioned a 4-to-1 slope. So that also increases safety. So it's not, there's not going to be steep banks on the pond. It'll be a steady, gradual slope.
okay, thanks.
Okay, thank
Director
you.
Power, are you thinking that this information will go forward and this will come back to us at a future meeting with more detail?
Yeah, the ordinance that guides all this process, it actually predates the Right to Farm Act, and there's some things that are going to be allowed to proceed based on, as long as the pond is used in accordance with generally accepted agricultural practices of the Right to Farm Act. But then there are some ordinance requirements that we still have that have to apply here. There is the things we've mentioned tonight. We will present some more detailed findings on those, and this should be allowed to keep proceeding. But just one thing that this older ordinance states is that you, the Planning Commission, must notify the neighboring property owners. So we would typically send those notices out on the Planning Commission's behalf. So after tonight's meeting, I'll go ahead and send the notices to the neighboring property owners, and you will have a chance to look at this again in the near future.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks to the applicant for a long meeting, if you were here for all of it. And we appreciate you hanging with us and sharing the information tonight. We look forward to getting more information from you the next time we are together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are to general discussion in tonight's meeting, and you have a general discussion, question or comment from the public, Director Power?
Yes, I do see one non-agenda item question from Stephen Dark over in the chat window. It's just stating, does anyone know if Healy Homes, which is Timbers of Van Buren subdivision off of Elwell, is still actively selling homes? And is there any way staff could perhaps reach out and see if they need assistance? I'd like to see that subdivision begin to process again or progress again. Thanks. And so that's a good question. I am aware of that subdivision, and I'm aware of Mr. Healy inquiring about the lots that are left there. And it's certainly something we can look into. There are buildable lots left in that subdivision. And we can certainly help to guide that process along. There's
Great.
an original plat drawing that guides how the sites are supposed to be built out.
Well, that's unusual for us to have plats, so good. Thank you. Other general discussion items. Director Power, do you have anything?
That was, I think, enough for me tonight. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out.
I have one question, and I'm not sure you know yet, but do you know, are we continuing to meet virtually in April? Or are we looking at coming back together face to face?
That's a very good question. And you may know that the state's extension of the Open Meetings Act to allow virtual meetings had technically expired on March 31st, unless there was a action by a local unit of government, including county government, to declare a state of emergency. Based on the Wayne County Commission's declaration of a state of emergency, I understand we can go, we will be able to continue with our remote meetings. And I think it's ultimately a decision of the clerk's office, but it's my understanding we will continue to do that into April, possibly.
I believe Washtenaw County already announced all meetings remote till December 2021.
Thanks.
So, for the entire year.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything for general discussion? Anybody? Sure.
I just saw that Director Best had his hand raised, but it's no longer raised. Maybe he was going to speak to the open meeting item. So I kind of wanted to acknowledge that, but I kind of didn't because it looks like he may not be needing to speak anymore. So, but if he does, Director Best, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Can hear you. Hello, Director Best.
Hi, how are you? Planning Commission, the Wayne County Executive's Office, along with the Wayne County Commission, did extend the Open Meeting Act emergency order for Wayne County to continue through, what do you call it, June. And so we will continue to meet until June with unless we'll continue to meet with virtual meetings until June unless otherwise notified by the Township Supervisor's Office.
Great.
That is currently the plan.
All right. Now we know. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else for general discussion? Last call. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Through the chair, make a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I second that motion.
Commissioner Dar, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Really
Good
good
night,
discussion.
everyone.
Great
Good night.
presentation.
Good night, everyone.
Aye.